Reporting live, this is Room 45, where politics pulse in real time.
Epstein emails here. I mean, look, as Brandy said, I think if any of these emails had come out about a Democratic politician, right-wing media would have been absolutely losing their mind. But at the same time, there is still some reaction here, even after several months of the White House trying to say, telling people, like we know Trump called Charlie Kirk, telling people saying, don't talk about this. Stop talking about the Epstein files. It's over. And there's still that kind of rumbling. And as you said, I think this is getting folded into this broader idea that Trump has become too close with the tech billionaires, with the mega wealthy, and abandoned sort of the idea of populist MAGA movement.
What do you think, Molly?
I mean, I agree with Will, but it's amazing if you think that he was always, his whole thing was that he was a rich guy, right? That he's gotten too close with some different group of rich people. I mean, look, these politicians who are breaking with Trump over Epstein, they're not doing it because they're good people, right? They're doing it because they see, I mean, maybe it would be wonderful if it was, but.
Well, look, Nancy Mace is very, very adamant that she's on the side of survivors and having been the victim of abuse, she says.
Sure. But they're also politicians, right? So, but they are seeing political opportunity here. They see this is what cracks in the MAGA
political opportunity
movement.
for Mace, who's running for governor. She's going to need his endorsement.
Well, I cannot necessarily speak to Mace, but certainly with MTG, certainly with Lauren Boebert, certainly they are seeing cracks in the MAGA movement. And that is why I don't think that anyone here is moving out of their own belief in the importance of, and I say this as someone who wishes that they were, but I do think they're seeing, this is what cracks in a movement look like. Are people going, well, what about this? Because remember, all of these people for so long were like anything he did where they were like, well, we can forgive it because of MAGA. And now all of a sudden they're like, well, what about this? And I do think that's meaningful.
Doug, I mean, we're talking about how this is exposing Donald Trump for not living up to the promises he made. It's always been a weird circle to try to square. Donald Trump, the billionaire, caring about the working class and not caring about other billionaires, but whatever. Is this all overblown? Is this not that big of a deal? Is it going to go away? Is the fervor and this demand for the Epstein files, did it have its moment? Did it reach its peak?
Well, I think it's always been a steady chatter. I remember, Katie, over the summer, I was in Lake Ozark, Missouri, and I stopped in a business called Teresa's Trump Shop. And the lady that I spoke to there, I don't know if this was Teresa herself, told me, what's the holdup on the Epstein files? They're selling all the types of Donald Trump paraphernalia and merchandise. They didn't have any Epstein stuff, but she was concerned about that. So I think of that voter, but that's looking at one voter in one business with a microscope. And I think that's a lot of what we've been doing on this. So many times over the past 10 years, we've said, is this going to be when Republicans break with Donald Trump? And it turns out, no, not really. And so, this is going to go through the House. A lot of Republicans will vote for it. And I think we'll have a lot of coverage that's going to be very breathless saying, aha, now there are real cracks in the MAGA movement. But they're not going to go after Donald Trump on other stuff. So I do think we're blowing this up a lot more than is real, in part because discharge petitions don't happen very often. When I've worked on them, they've been spectacularly unsuccessful. So a lot of House voters will go for this on the Republican aisle. Does the Senate move this? Maybe, maybe not. Does Donald Trump sign this into law?
No way.
Absolutely not.
Oh, come on, though. If he doesn't sign it into law, isn't he just feeding the fire of conspiracy? If he says, no, I don't think anybody should see the full Epstein files, how does that not boomerang back around into his face?
Look, he is a master at distracting us from whatever we're focused on in Washington that isn't necessarily what voters are focused on. So if I'm advising Trump, one, I'd want all of this information out there already years ago so that you can move past it. And he knows that his base is going to go with him on almost anything that he does. Access Hollywood taught us that years ago. And then Donald Trump will do what he always does. He's a matador. He waves a red cape and we all follow it. My God, we're outraged that he threw a Halloween party. My God, the East Wing of the Capitol, or of the White House. But if you go 30 miles outside of Washington, D.C., people are saying, my God, that sandwich that I bought today was too expensive. And that's the conversation Trump and Republicans should and want to have with voters.
That is a more dangerous conversation.
Yeah, but they don't want to have it, right?
He was doing who knew if it is as loud as it is, so much so that it's going to force House Republicans to vote. Why would it not force the Senate Republicans? I mean, there are some of them who are up for re-election in 2026.
Yeah, I would say number one, I think they have a stiffer spine. I think that's could be one of the cases, and they think, and listen, it is true that tons of documents are coming out. We now see that, right? I mean, they have. If you're looking at it, from a pure political lens, it does seem that documents are coming out, which gives Republicans a place to quote unquote hide. Like, why do we need this if we're getting all these documents? And some of them, as you were noting in the beginning, are quite embarrassing to President Trump. I mean, they are. They reveal things that we did not know. I mean, emails tend to, about the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. I mean, that's the basic reality of it.
Yeah. All right. So, Laura, tell me about the president. Does he see any risk? Does the White House see any risk in him signing a veto if it gets to him?
Oh, I think they would certainly see a lot of risk in that, Katie. I mean, right now there's a bit of a sense of inevitability here at the White House, which is that, look, the president tried yesterday. It was a last-ditch, last-minute effort, bringing Lauren Boebert, the congresswoman, into the Situation Room, no less. And I think everyone knows that the Situation Room doesn't allow phones, so she would have had no ability to really record that conversation had she wanted to. But bringing her in, talking to other ones who had signed on to the discharge petition to try to get them to take their names off of it, and it didn't work. And so I think that right now the White House is regrouping and trying to figure out what exactly they're going to do ahead of this vote, if the president is going to do anything beyond posting on Truth Social. The last we've heard of him on this, and the only things that we've heard from him, are on Truth Social, and he posted about some 24 hours ago calling it, quote, the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Now, of course, this is a 180 for the president and for all of those across his administration, like the Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, who all were calling for the release of these files. But I think that there is a lot of risk here, Katie, if he were seen to very directly veto something like this, especially with his base, who we know was really adamant about trying to get these files released.
Why are they so nervous about this? Why call Lauren Boebert into this Situation Room?
I think yesterday the White House believed that their best shot at trying to kill this was to get those signatures off the discharge petition.
Yeah, but why? Why do they need to kill this?
Well, why? I mean, I think your guess is as good as mine, Katie, which is that essentially over the campaign trail, the president said, yeah, I think I would do that. I think I'd be willing to release the Epstein files. He was never as gung-ho about it as the Kash Patels and Pam Bondis of the world, or as even his vice president, J.D. Vance, who called it, quote, important when he was on, the podcaster Theo Vaughn's podcast, who's one of those big MAGA influencers who was trying to say that he was ultimately disappointed this past summer when the Epstein files hadn't been released. But I think that the reason is because obviously those emails don't look good for the president, and their base wants this out. And if more emails reveal, at the very least, as Jake said, are embarrassing, that could potentially hurt the president, not just with his base, but with independents, who he's already suffering with for a variety of different reasons. But I was just texting with a Republican lawmaker who said that they plan on voting for this when it comes to the floor next week. And I'm sure Jake is getting a lot of texts like this. And they said that they have not heard from the White House, and they essentially accept the fact that they think that the White House is accepting the fact that the reality is a lot of Republicans are going to potentially vote for this. The lawmaker thought it would be a sizable number, and this Republican lawmaker said that they thought that the White House mishandled the entire situation, especially at the beginning when the Attorney General Pam Bondi brought in all of those influencers I've been talking about, all of those conservative MAGA influencers, and handed them binders saying that they were going to release the Epstein files. So from that point on, it has been chaotic, and there's been a lot of backbiting, behind closed doors at the White House.